Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Broto Fantasy Football Podcast presented by BrotoFantasy.com and the Fantasy Football by Broto app, the only tool you need to dominate fantasy football.
Like, share, subscribe, download that app. It's always free. You can find it anywhere. I'm your boy at PsychWardFF, the host with the most. Get your league mates smoked. I'm with Themi, as always, at Gridiron Greek, one of the best content creators we have at the Broto team, always churning out some high-quality stuff for you guys. Much love, much respect. We made it. Week 12. We still alive. We still fighting for the playoffs. Maybe have some playoff spots locked down. If you've been tuning in weekly, you know we help you get there. But it's come down to crunch time really for the season. You know, a lot of leagues still starting those early playoffs in 2 weeks, or most of them week 15, I would hope, with that extended schedule that the NFL's had us in for the last 3 years. But obviously these last few games leading into week 14 and week 15 are incredibly crucial. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being here with us. We got some news and notes we're going to get to throughout the show, but I've noticed some of the boys, some of the regulars, specifically Dom, is already up in the chat. I hope he's in here watching still. We went live a couple seconds early because we saw some of the notes, some of the comments. Dom's asking, how do we feel about starting Devin Singletary this week? In all honesty, like, I do think the utility that he's been giving the Texans, even with Dameon Pierce coming back, limited practices and things of that nature, obviously he'll get some snaps and he'll get some work. I don't think that the utility of Devin Singletary can go ignored. I think the Jaguars' defense is what gives me the most concerns about that than anything. It's their true matchup rank 17th against running backs, but they're a lot tougher specifically against rushing running backs and have a negative points over average against rushing running backs, giving under 8 points per game specifically to the rush, a little more susceptible to receivers out of the backfield. But Devin Singletary, even as a starter, had a total of 4 targets and 2 catches in 2 combined games. Yeah, had some career rushing highs, but I'm not feeling as high on him. He's probably still worth a flex level start, but I think there's probably a lot of pivots in your lineup knowing how well you stack these teams, Dom. So, Demi, any thoughts on that one?
No, I think you nailed it. It's even if he gets 10 to 15 carries, which is realistic, because they kind of had a little bit of a split going before. It started to increase as the season progressed. It wasn't that big. Dameon Pierce was still the lead back, but like you said, this is a really tough matchup with the Jaguars. So, I think like you really need a touchdown here, and I'm not expecting a touchdown here.
Yeah, I facts. And he does. Oh, wait. I mean, I see your good morning as well, and I'll always give shout outs to the love and the respect. Also, good morning. I'm so glad we're here. We made it. Week 12. Every single week. This week was a little better because we had the Thanksgiving games and the Black Friday game. But yeah, man, I literally wait every week for Sunday. I have Puka, Nico Collins, and Kupp. See what I mean about these teams? I need to start 2 of them in half PPR. This is the first week I'm actually thinking about just benching Kupp, as crazy as that sounds. I don't think that that's that crazy. It's a really hard bench at any point in time. And not to like brag, but I'll brag a little bit of a victory lap is like, as soon as I mentioned Kupp was a sell high, he really has regressed majorly. And obviously the injury is going to hurt that per game average as well, because he did start that game. So like that's, but with that said, I don't think it's that crazy. The Jaguars secondary are the weakest part of a very strong defense. I kind of see a sneaky shootout coming up in that early frame. I think Puka and Kupp might be the must-start players here, though. It's just so difficult to bench those guys, especially in that matchup against Arizona. Like, the Rams are going to be able to put up points, and I low-key think that Arizona can win that game.
Well, I think it was a similar situation with the Texans against the Cardinals. I believe it was last week, where they were just using Devin Singletary again in a really plus matchup, because the Cardinals are really weak on the ground. You don't necessarily have to throw against them. The only thing now is with Kyler Murray back, it does kind of keep them more in play for like a shootout kind of thing. And, if Matthew Stafford is still kind of like post-injury, they might need to throw, but also that might also affect how great these wide receivers are going to do. That's the only issue. But Brown is out, which makes Nico Collins a lot more interesting. Even if the Jaguars are really good in the secondary, even if that is the weakest part, they're still very good.
Yeah, it's a tough play for me here too, because I think like essentially with Nico, you're guaranteeing a really good floor in that production, and I think Puka's floor is honestly a little more volatile than maybe Kupp in a vacuum when they're both healthy. But is Cooper Kupp fully healthy? And like, no, we know that he isn't. And Nico, even with Tank Dell becoming a superstar rookie receiver, there's really no hyperbole to that. Nico was still first game back, 11 targets, led the team in targets, 7 receptions, 75 yards. They seem to use him a little more underneath than they do Dell. But I really like Nico Collins in what should be, again, a sneaky shootout with Texans and Jaguars. Both of those teams can put up points. We've seen the Jaguars kind of struggle to find their identity on offense. It's a tough one for me, but I'm almost saying that, like, I got to start Nico here. And I'm going to lean Puka, even though I think that floor is a little more volatile.
That's fair. I'm strictly playing the matchups here and who I think is better, and I'm just going to go with the 2 Rams. But it doesn't feel good to see Nico Collins, because I do think you have a point that Kupp could just like bust this game. Like, it's very possible. And I'm worried that Nico Collins is like, his floor is actually going to be better than like in the mid Cooper Kupp game.
That's what I mean. I mean, it's at least looked like that. He's had a couple down games, missed a couple, right? But there is now a larger sample size for games that Kupp has played that are negative than are positive, right? Like, he's had more bad games than good ones.
Yeah.
So that one's, tough. I mean, we might even circle back to that one depending on how the chat rolls through, but I guess we're split. Themi's going 2 Rams and I'm going Puka Nico. Not that that's going to help you make that decision very much, but go with your gut there. And again, we'll probably circle back to that one with some more questions leading that way. Pick up in the chat. Hello, my lovely fellows. Hope y'all are vibing today. I need your help. Where are we then with the question? Found you. Gus Edwards versus LA Chargers, or Dalton Schultz versus Jacksonville in PPR tight end premium at that. I think I'm still I mean, man, CJ Stroud can really just uphold like 3 top 10 pass catchers in a single week. He really, really can do that. Gus Edwards is on such an incredible touchdown streak that it's like you expect some regression eventually. You can't, usually players don't, I mean, unless he could be having a James Conner 2021, a Jamal Williams 2022-esque season. Like, absolutely. I mean, he already is. You're talking about 8 touchdowns over the last 5 games, I think. And a 6 touchdown streak, I think, is what he's at right now. But I'm going to lean Gus Edwards. That run funnel is just the Chargers defense just struggles at stopping the run, man. I think Dalton Schultz, even in PPR tight end premium, I think it's a little bit more volatile. I think Gus Edwards is going to give you a very good floor, a very incredible ceiling with his touchdown upside. He is going to lead the team in carries. Keaton Mitchell will get some change of pace work. Gus Edwards will lead the team in carries unless it's very much a Lamar running day, but still you should see a touchdown as long as the Ravens can get themselves inside of the 10. And I'm going to lean Edwards pretty sharply here, but as Themi breaks it down, I'm going to pull up the true matchups and the comparisons.
Yeah, so Dalton Schultz, the last time they played Jacksonville, which feels like years ago, Houston won 37-17. Very weird game. He was targeted 3 times. He caught 1 pass for 9 yards. I don't expect that to be the case again. I think these teams look a lot different. I think you're going to see CJ Stroud, throw a lot more to those guys. But, man, even like 5 or 6 receptions without a touchdown, I don't think that's enough for Dalton Schultz to surpass Gus Edwards for me. Like you said, the Chargers, I really think you could just beat them anywhere. It really doesn't matter. But what was it? David Montgomery's first game back where they both just like went off. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, 3 touchdowns, over 180 yards on the ground. Different situation, but man, the Ravens just what a perfect situation to use Gus Edwards. I can't. I'm not benching him here for Dalton Schultz, even though Schultz is like the type of guy who could have like a tight end 1 overall game, like pretty often, like 4 times this year. Yeah, it's not what I'm aiming at unless he gets a touchdown. I'm not banking on that. I'd rather bet on Gus getting a touchdown.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. I mean, you can say that almost about any tight end. It really is true. Yes,
Schultz has had this is not the answer I wanted.
My bad, Vic. I do think like that the volatility is attached to Dalton Schultz a little bit more, and you're kind of looking at, without a touchdown, you're looking at very similar projections. Like if we've got in a full PPR tight end premium, where let's call it 1.5 points per reception, as I'm assuming. So you're looking at like 12.5 without the touchdown for Dalton Schultz. And I do think that Gus can absolutely get there as well. Like you could see Gus have, 95 rushing yards, 2 catches for 15. Like it's so. And then obviously the touchdown, if we're leaning that way for either player, which of course we are, and you could say that about any tight end, as I was alluding, I think Gus Edwards has a better chance at scoring that touchdown. Dominic mentioned that his teams are so good because he's a sniper on the waiver wire.
Just showing
Steve
off,
up in the chat, my boy. I've seen him in here a few times. Glad to have you back. Kyler, T-Law, Dobbs, and he wants us to start too, assuming it's a super flex.
Well, I think Kyler is like a must start there.
Yeah, weirdly enough. I mean, I shouldn't say weirdly enough. K1 QB1, like, yeah, I think Kyler is the must start here, and it's funny that T-Law and Dobbs are genuinely as close as they are, both in like total points this season, points per game, and as like a weekly matchup. Obviously, Dobbs gets a bit of a better matchup perceivably. Like the Texans secondary is pretty nasty right now.
Yeah, but so is the Bears.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. The Bears
like
really
nastier than it has.
The Bears really have turned their defensive identity around. I will concede that for sure. Yeah, they are one of the. On that note, because I was looking through it, they were one of the biggest movers on True Matchup Rank this season over the last like 4 weeks. They just continuously keep getting better.
Yeah, I think they got someone back. I don't remember if it was Jalen Johnson or someone. I think one of the corners returned. That might have helped, but
yeah,
man,
Kendall Fuller.
Was that who was Kendall Fuller? Yep. I'm looking at these guys like finishes, and Joshua Dobbs over the past, since week 6, has been quarterback 19 or better. He's had like top 3, top 5 finishes. He's had a rushing touchdown in his past 5 games. But it kind of looks like Trevor Lawrence is like back to heating up. I don't know. Tennessee was a very good matchup for him. He only threw 262 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, but then he scored 2 on the ground. So It's like, do you think that that's going to happen against Houston? Probably not. He had like the best matchup, which is kind of like what we saw with Deshaun Watson, where kind of he took advantage of Tennessee, but it still wasn't pretty. It was just like you have one of the best matchups, and you did pretty good.
Right.
I don't know if that's going to be the case again this week, even though it could be kind of a shootout, like I think we were talking about before. I think Josh Dobbs offers a little more safety for me, whereas Trevor Lawrence, I could see him throwing like 2 picks, maybe scoring once, and then not having a great passing total. It's tough. I'd rather take the safety with Dobbs because I think I'm getting at worst a low-end quarterback too.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I obviously do think that you could say the same about Trevor Lawrence. Like, I don't see him finishing outside of the top 24 this week.
Mm-hmm.
But again, Dobbs is consistently producing, has given you top 5 finishes, and has a safer QB2 ceiling, or floor rather. I think Kyler has undoubtedly the highest ceiling, and it is perceivably like a pretty decent matchup against the Rams, especially for rushing quarterbacks. Surprisingly, even with Aaron Donald there. And yes, Kyler has shown some of that rushing upside already. I only think that's going to increase. I'm going to completely agree and go Kyler and Josh Dobbs.
Mm-hmm.
And then Steve's got another one back to back: Jerome Ford, Bijan, Drake London, or Deontay in his flex. We got to pick one. It is half PPR. I mean, I'm going with Bijan. Oh, I mean, they're playing the Saints. I just remembered that.
Yeah, Jerome Ford might have the best matchup of these guys against the Broncos, who are like dead last against running backs. Running is going to be the name of the game. I mean, look, they put up 13 points against the Steelers last week. They looked terrible, and like they were stopping the run. So this team clearly, not a surprise that Kevin Stefanski wants to run the ball here against the team that the Broncos were like getting hot and like really showing that they can win games. Granted, it's like 4 or 5 turnovers in a game to win by like 3 points. So, not like a consistent path to victory, but if you can get DTR to like throw a bunch, you could probably force a pick. He almost had like 2-3 picks off of tipped balls against the Steelers. It's just like you got to beat Troy Polamalu to make those plays. We don't got a Troy Polamalu on the Steelers anymore. But 0.5 PPR, Kareem Hunt is getting so much work that it's kind of scary.
I still think that Bijan's probably like as bad as a matchup as it might be against the Saints in perception and in like historical ability to shut down the running back and everything of that nature, the Saints have definitely, absolutely, and I can, say so both analytically and as a fan that watches every snap of every game because they're my favorite team, they've regressed a lot in their rushing defense. They went like 29 games without allowing a 100-yard rusher and have allowed 3 this season. So it's definitely getting worse for them up front, and obviously some injuries in the linebacking core have helped that. And I'll go right to Drake London and say that Marshawn Lattimore is traditionally the best like physical cover corner in the NFL. That's why he does so well against guys like Mike Evans, against guys like, a Mike Williams, against big boys. And then a guy like Justin Jefferson or Stephon Diggs, who are a little more agile and can like beat him with their intelligence and route running. He does struggle against. I'll concede that. But like against bigger matchups, like Marshawn is so good in leverage that he just dominates guys that are bigger than him. And it's really interesting, but just go through the game logs. He's done it his entire career. He's obviously going to cover shadow Drake London, and you don't want any part of that deep passing game or that forward passing game with Desmond Ridder under center against a really tough matchup. I do think there's going to be a lot of checkdowns still. Bijan's obviously, Arthur Smith's finally, leaning towards that workhorse role, and Algier can be a goal line back and steal some touches there for sure. But I think the reception ceiling in half PPR is to Bijan over all of these running backs. Even without a Matt Canada calling plays, I still think Deontay's a little too volatile for me to start him over a guy like Bijan.
That's fair. I think Bijan offers a level of safety too, whereas Jerome Ford, even though it kind of sounds weird to say that Jerome Ford has an RB1 overall finish in the works, whereas Bijan may not. Like the upside is more this week. But that being said, Bijan is still like a supreme talent, so it's like I wouldn't be surprised to see him just beat up on him. But yeah, I think like the safety that Bijan offers is also a lot better, even though he should. Like Jerome Ford should take advantage of this and have like a good floor. It's just hard to bench Bijan. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Tim, our boy, the plug, Taysom or Evan Ingram? I think we're going to go Evan Ingram here.
Okay. Yeah, he's been heating up a little bit, I think he started to get more involved.
Yeah, well, I mean, absolutely.
I got to see his game logs again, but
I
mean, he's had very good target numbers.
Yeah, but he's
like
also
all season
was able to boost those literally playing Zay Jones' role. Like Evan Ingram was, I think, second in the NFL behind Kelsey of running actual like wide receiver snaps.
Yeah, it's just 2, I guess, bad matchups these past weeks where like he just didn't get any yards. He's had no touchdowns all season. That's pretty crazy.
It's a very Evan Ingram thing to do,
Well,
honestly.
well, I think you guys were talking about it in the preseason where I don't know who mentioned it. Someone said like Evan Ingram is going to regress heavily in the touchdown department. Like he's not worth like his ADP or something. Like I just remember hearing that. One of you guys talked about it.
I'll push back and say he's definitely been worth ADP still, but
yeah, but those touchdowns, he had like maybe 8 last year, and so far he's got 0. Yeah, Taysom is too volatile. I'm not going to start over Ingram, who's like going to be a solid producer at this position.
Yeah. Happy week 12 to you as well, Charles. Hopping into your question. Hope you're still kicking around. We're actually running pretty quick. We usually take a little time, but we're doing good on the times and the questions today. With Hollywood nursing injury and being unproductive recently, would you flip him out of the lineup? Yes. For Gus or Javonte, he has Warren as my RB2 right now. I think both of those guys are perceivable starts over Hollywood right now. I think they're great pivots as well. With that said, who are we choosing, Gus or Javonte? And I guess we can add the caveat of, would we start both of them over Warren?
I'm going to be starting Warren over Javonte, and I'm going to start Gus over Hollywood. I just ordered my
Warren in that lineup as the RB2, and you're flexing out Gus. I want to start Javonte so bad
against the Browns.
Yeah, I know, but I know, and no, I mean that's you can't. You can't. Myles Garrett dude. This is a little bit of a tangent, and I mean, appreciate you, Bick. We're trying to spit our bars. But I genuinely think like if there was ever a genuine argument to give a defensive player MVP again, which you'll never see it. You'll never see it again in the history of football. But if there was literally ever an argument, like the Browns are second in the AFC at 7-3 on the back of one fucking player, and it's Myles Garrett.
Yeah, I mean, I still think Deron Bland should win MVP, but
I mean, that's also pretty impressive. It's going to be a really cool argument for Defensive Player of the Year, to be honest.
Oh, for sure. If he can do it against like Jalen Hurts to seal the game, I think that almost seals the case. Like for him, like just the storyline alone.
I guarantee there's going to be more. Like
I would love to see it.
Popping into the next question, Mr. Granters 11. I love that name. Kirk or get frisky with Josh Downs full PPR?
Josh Downs might have one of the best matchups of the week. The secondary for the Bucs is so injured right now.
Yeah.
Like it's disgusting. Like a team that relies so heavily on their defense, who I think will still do quite good defensively. Let me actually pull up the injury report so I can give you because I kind of talked about this in one of my articles for something. My goodness, I just searched up NFL injuries. Great. That really narrows it down. Okay, let's pull it up. Levante David is out. He's a linebacker, I know. Carlton Davis is questionable. Jamel Dean is out. Who else? Devin White is questionable. And then their line is questionable. I don't know, man. And it's also going to be probably a bit of a shootout because I don't believe that the Colts defensively are like that stout. It was I think against the run they're pretty bad, which is great for Rachaad White, who's like on pace to play now.
They're being downgraded. They're pretty bad against everything. Sixth worst against quarterback, second worst against running back, sixth worst against tight end, 10th worst against wide receiver in true matchup rank.
Yeah, well, there you go.
I mostly look at if you're looking at the offensive side, but we were talking defense.
Yeah, no, I mostly look at DVOA. Like obviously for fantasy, it's a different story, but just in terms of like the perceived like differences. So they're 11th against the pass, but 24th against the run in DVOA. I think this game could be such a good shootout. Josh Downs should be good, and I think he's got a top 5 matchup this week against nobody, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I do really like Downs here, and I think that's where I am going to get frisky with it in the sense that Downs could provide you a pretty low floor. He has been a volatile player at certain times, but I think the ceiling is genuinely higher than Kirk, and that's interesting to say for a player that has produced top 24 numbers. But Kirk I don't like using splits, but I'm going to have to here because of how interesting these splits are. Zay Jones in the lineup and Calvin Ridley has had 3 100-yard games. Without Zay Jones in the lineup, Christian Kirk has been a wide receiver 16 or better in all but one game. So it's really just interesting from a real football perspective what a big-bodied guy that can actually run outside like Zay Jones does for a guy like Calvin Ridley and a guy like Evan Ingram. So I think Kirk actually has a lower floor than he's being given credit for looking back on his his season averages up to this point. I think Downs is my play. I agree with everything that Themi said, and I broke down the true matchup rank from a fantasy perspective, top 10 in everything. So I do think that this could get into some scoring totals with the Buccaneers being able to score, but with having such a hurt defense and a defense that also has just allowed like 2 back-to-back 300-plus yard performances from quarterbacks, I like Josh Downs a lot this week.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Christian Kirk's success has come against like 2 really bad like slot cornerbacks, and I forgot his name. I just pulled it up. Tavier Thomas, I guess is how you pronounce it. He's been locked down in the slot. I mean, no touchdowns allowed. He's allowed, he's allowed a couple of receptions here and there, but he's had one game where he's allowed more than 50 yards.
Oh, dude, the Titans, or the Texans secondary is legit nasty. Like, yeah, Tavier Thomas, Jalen Peter, what's his name? Not Singletary, obviously that's their running back, but it's close to something like that.
Derek Stingley?
Yes, Derek Stingley. Thank you. Yeah, like, I mean, their secondary is legit nasty. And they're all like under 25 too, so that's even scarier. Well, hopping into Joe, I hope that helped you out, Mr. Granters. Joe, another regular. Hey, boys, full PPR. He lost Andrews this week. A lot of us did, man, and it's been a rough loss. So he picked up Trey Burton and Isaiah Likely. Who would you start? I'm going to start Isaiah Likely.
Oh, wait, is that not Trey McBride?
It says Trey B. Isn't that the kid from – isn't that wait, I'm thinking of the kid from the Bengals. What's his name?
Trenton Irwin, the wide receiver?
No. They're like –
oh, they're tight end.
No. Yeah, they're undrafted rookie tight end.
Oh, I couldn't tell you his name. All I can think of is Hayden Hurst.
Trey McBride. I'm starting Trey McBride almost every other tight end, like in in the world right now. I would
No,
assume
you're right. It is Trey Burden on the. No, he's a free agent. What? I think
know,
you're just messing with me.
I'm looking
His
at
name
his
is
name.
Lawrence Godfrey Trey Burden
Tanner
III.
Hudson,
What a guy.
so not him, obviously. There, we got through that like a bunch of fucking blind men. Trey B. I don't like who is Trey B. as far as the like.
Oh, there was a Trey Burden on the.
Yeah, he used to play tight end
no,
for
not
the
on
Eagles,
the
I
Bengals.
think.
Yeah, Eagles, Bears, Colts, and then there's the only other Trey that pops up with a B is Treylon Burks. I think it's Trey McBride. And Isaiah
Joe,
Likely.
I hope you're still in here. You got to hit us up with that clarification on Trey B. Let's hope it's Trey McBride, and you're definitely starting him over Likely.
Because if it's someone else that is a Trey B, I guess I'm starting Isaiah Likely. If it's Isaiah Likely versus Trey McBride, we're starting Trey McBride, I believe.
Yeah. All right, well, let's kick it to the next one while we hope I get a little more info from Joe. Charles back in with another one. Zay Flowers still on injury report. Indeed, would you roll the dice on leaving him in the lineup with the pivot being Tyler Chandler or just sub Javonte in? He has a 3-point lead and a 1-player advantage going into Sunday. That is, for all of those watching, all of this extra information is so helpful. I really appreciate you, Charles. Much love, much respect. I think with that on the note, like, Ty Chandler definitely been getting a little bit of change of pace work behind Madison, and Madison been struggling. I do think Chandler's kind of a sneaky little flex play in deeper leagues, but even against the Browns, like, man, that's such a tough, like, do I trust in Ty Chandler's minimal big play upside and touchdown upside for a guy that I know is going to get 17 touches? Even against the league's best defense?
Do you know that he's going to get 17 touches? Because last week against Minnesota, another really difficult running back matchup, 11 carries, 37 yards, 2 targets, 2 receptions, 16 yards.
We're talking about a 13 carry or a 13 touch.
And then in true matchup rank, the Browns are 32nd against running backs, 24th against receiving, 31st against rushing. The only running back that did anything last week against the Vikings was Samaje Perine on like 8 dump offs to end the game on that last drive before. I think the Vikings might have got the ball back, but that's irrelevant. Basically, it has nothing to do with Samaje Perine. I tweeted maybe 30 minutes before crunch time that Ty Chandler is like a good, widely available Justin Jefferson pivot if you can have him in the flex. And the reasoning for that is the Bears in true matchup rank are 32nd against RB receiving. They're 32nd in RB receiving in DVOA. They're not that great against the rush. I mean, they're a little better in true matchup rank against like strictly rushing than like is perceived. And then Alexander Madison has been splitting snaps all season. If Cam Akers didn't go down, it would have been Cam Akers this week. Ty Chandler may not be like
was taking his lunch money. Like Cam Akers was usurping his role.
Yeah.
The game before Cam Akers tore his Achilles, and actually played the full game, he saw 100% of fourth quarter snaps.
That's insane. Yeah. I don't know if like Ty Chandler is gonna have a game where he's going to get that many targets, but I think the opportunity is going to be there just because of how soft that defense has shown it is in that area. You know, it could go to Madison, but he just hasn't been that great this year. He hasn't been that workhorse, and I think you might get a similar amount of touches out of both Javonte and Chandler this week. And I think that I'll say it. I could be totally wrong. Like, it's not a great bet to make. Like, Javonte is like the RB1 in that offense, and he's looked great like post injury, especially like these past few weeks. But man, it's strictly matchup for me right now, and I'm going with Chandler. I'm having him as the little pivot.
And then I guess you get to keep the higher upside player in there at that point too, which would be Zay Flowers in a vacuum anyway. 6-point Kyler Murray or Mahomes? Like Mahomes, right?
Yeah.
6-point passing touchdowns.
I don't know if the Raiders are like a strictly better matchup. They're probably not, but man, I'm just taking Mahomes to dominate them. I have to assume that his ceiling is insane every week.
His ceiling is insane every week, and the Raiders have been like really good against the quarterback, but his floor has also been fairly low. They're minus 10% point over average to the quarterback position. So yeah, Kyler does have like a perceivably much better matchup. I'm still going to play Mahomes against the Raiders in a divisional matchup of a team that he traditionally has fucking owned his entire life. Even as, good as that team has looked in a resurgent after firing their coach, it's 6-point passing touchdowns. I don't expect Murray to throw for 3 TDs today. I can predict, or not predict, but like expect Mahomes to throw for 3 in his sleep against any matchup. So I'm still going to lean Mahomes, especially in a 6-point passing touchdown. That really does actually make me lean much heavier. John DePinto, another one of our regulars, our boy. James Cook or James Conner, half PPR. Also Kirk, London, or Myers. That's a tough one. I'm probably going to lean James Cook.
Really?
Nah, I'm probably going to lean James Cook. And then I really don't like Drake London this week. Like probably one of my biggest fades at wide receiver this week, to be honest, especially now that Ritter's back under center. And obviously Marshawn Lattimore, Jacoby Myers, kind of Aiden O'Connell's killed that dream a bit. We do just see him hyper targeting Devontae. And working in the lower depth of target to guys like, you're starting to see Michael Mayer pop up a little bit. Hunter Renfrow has had, 2 5-reception games as well. So Jacoby regressing very heavily and very noticeably, in my opinion. I think as much as I was lower on Kirk, and I think that floor isn't quite true to what his point per game floor has shown, I think I'm going to lean Kirk over those other 2 options. James Conner, James Cook's tough for me, though. If Themi might be able to convince me.
Man, I felt the Rams were a little worse on the ground, like against running backs. They're 21st in true matchup rank, absolutely dominate receiving work, but they're a little susceptible to like purely rushing, which might be more in James Conner's wheelhouse for now because it doesn't seem like he's getting that many targets this year. He's kind of relied on like a solid like point workload and then getting a touchdown. But man, he's been almost an RB3 his past 2 games in his return. I think even in like a tough matchup against the Eagles, I'd rather take a shot on like a really high scoring game and James Cook getting into the end zone than James Conner doing it. As much as I didn't think that going into this question.
I'm popping down to the bottom. I know everybody, I'm going to get to all the questions, but John just had a little bit of a follow-up on his. So I will say that I don't think so, but definitely trending towards it. It kind of all like those questions honestly kind of all depend on who's available. Like who is available have a better strength of schedule, range of outcomes, potential positive regression towards the end of the season than Jacoby Myers. If any of those are yes, then definitely trending towards it. Benjamin Hare up in here with morning fellas, half PPR. We got to pick just one. Christian Kirk, Nico Collins, Jordan Addison. He himself is leaning Nico. I'm kind of leading Addison. But it's between Addison and Nico for us for sure, as we've kind of had a propensity on Christian Kirk maybe having a little bit of a lower ceiling today.
It's a much better matchup for TJ Hawkinson to kind of go off again. And I think we've seen Addison kind of take a back step during those games. Yeah. Yeah, I really don't like Addison against these Chicago corners. I think they can still kind of like make space for him and stuff. Like they're very smart, but I think of all these guys, I'm sitting Kirk for sure, just because he has an absurdly hard matchup, and I think these other guys are probably in a better situation right now.
Yeah, you kind of make a good point though with the Bears secondary improving as much as they've had. Obviously, adding Pro Bowl pass rusher is going to help that genuinely, right? Quarterbacks have to make a quicker decision. You know the word I'm trying to use, and those corners are a bit able to take advantage of that opportunity. I am going to lean Nico. I'm going to stick with you, Ben, and I'm going to lean Nico here just slightly over Addy, but I think I can comfortably start Kirk. Even if he has a big game, I'll feel okay about him being on my bench, knowing that I pivoted to one of these 2 options. Good morning from Will, my boy. Always love to see you. A Discord regular, a chat regular, half PPR. We're picking 2 for him between Cortland Sutton, Josh Downs, and Zay Jones. I will say this. Sutton is my wide receiver bust of the week. I don't think that magic is necessarily going to continue. And it has been attached to him scoring, I think, 4 touchdowns in the last 4 games. So might see some regression there in the scoring department, which would greatly affect Cortland Sutton's overall upside. And he still has yet to finish as a top 5 option, even in his heights, right? Like I think wide receiver 8 was his highest finish so far in those last 4 games that the Broncos have won in a row. Josh Downs is a guy that we both really like here, but I think still going to lean Sutton over Zay Jones, if I'm being honest.
Oh, this is a pick too. Okay. I'm sorry. I was just like Josh Downs. Just move on.
Yeah, of course, Josh Downs. Yeah. Josh Downs for sure. Great matchup, great player. Has a very, very tall ceiling, a volatile floor, sure, but both can be said about all of those players. So that's why I like Josh Downs the most in out of these 3 guys. And I'm going to lean Sutton still. The linear progression for his target totals in that offense is too strong to ignore. Like Mims and Judy just seem like tertiary depth pieces.
This is difficult for me because I feel like both these guys are just going to bust. So it's like Sutton might have that big playability more so, but do I want to bet on a guy going against like probably the toughest defense in the league? I think I'll go Zay Jones here. I think this game has more of an ability for like the defenses could just fall apart. But it's not backed by anything.
I don't hate it. I genuinely don't, because I completely agreed with you with that assessment. I think Sutton and Jones are a little bit closer in their volatility this week than any of the consensus would be willing to admit. So, and again, if I'm going to stick to my guns, like he is my bust of the week at wide receiver. So, Josh Downs and Zay Jones, let's do it. Would you drop Tyler Lockett? At what point do we just dropping players that aren't helping us? I mean, again, we kind of covered that a little bit, Joe. Hopefully you were listening to that last. It really just depends on the pivot. And to give you a good example, I mean, I hate to keep jumping questions, John, but you're getting a little bit of a positive treatment today because these are good points that help everybody. Would you drop Myers for Josh Downs? That's a move that I would do. Yes. That's a move that I would do. I would drop Jakobi Meyers for Josh Downs at this point in the season for the last 4 weeks that I'm playing fantasy football. Thank you very much, Jakobi, for getting me here. But that's a move I would probably be looking to do in anything that is, 10 teams or more. With that said, back to Joe, like a guy like Tyler Lockett, I do think is going to have a massive positive regression. Tyler Lockett is too good of a player to be playing this badly. And it's very, I genuinely think that's that simple of an analysis. He's too good of a player to be playing this badly. He's a little banged up, and Geno has certainly regressed from his journeyman breakout that we saw after 9 years of being in the NFL last season. But I still think that Tyler Lockett has all of the propensity and resume to be a league winner, where he just gets hot towards the end of the season, has 2 20-point games in the fantasy playoffs. He's not somebody I'm looking to drop unless that pivot is even stronger than a guy like Josh Downs.
It's worth noting that Tyler Lockett's last few games for the fantasy season, at Dallas, at San Francisco, maybe not great matchups. Then he's got Philly, Tennessee, Pittsburgh. He might be worth kind of stashing for that playoff run, to be honest. I think even Geno could take advantage of some really bad
I know the
corners.
upcoming right. And again, that's kind of what I was leaning to, because I have been looking at strength of schedule a lot more now that we're in that crunch time of the season. And the next 2 matchups might make you feel like you should drop them even more. But players like that have such great matchups in the last run of the season, and even Tyler Lockett, guys, I also think like Deontay Johnson, who I think is going to have some great positive regression now that Matt Canada isn't the offense coordinator. Maybe not feeling great about starting him in the next couple matchups, but just things of that nature. They're not necessarily guys that I'm looking to drop, unless that pivot on the waiver wire is someone got crazy and let go of Cooper Kupp, or you know what I mean? It's got to be. I know that's a really large gap in the value tiers, but a guy like Tyler Lockett's somebody that I'm certainly willing to eat a few bad weeks for. Need a possible replacement for Rachaad White, who is entering banged up with a knee injury if he does play at all. Currently questionable. I know we didn't get to some of our news and notes like we usually do, but you guys keep firing these questions off, so I got to keep up. I do think that, if we had to pick one between these 3, even with DTR, it's Amari Cooper, pretty obviously, though, right? 3 catches for 129 yards is definitely in his wheelhouse this season. Amari Cooper might be playing his best football of his career. And I know that that's a pretty crazy statement, but genuinely look at some of the splits and the analytics that this kid is putting up and his per touch numbers and things of that nature, like Amari really is, he is a volatile boomer bust, but that boom is just massive, and it seems to be coming more often than not. So I think Cooper is the fairly obvious switch. Would I start a hurt Rashad over Amari Cooper? Probably.
Yeah, and Rashad White is officially active as of about like 5 or 6 minutes ago.
Cheers. Well then, I mean,
and
I'm probably starting Rashad.
Yeah, I think this morning they said it seems like there was no setbacks. I don't remember if that was like an official report or someone just, assuming. But he has a very good matchup this week. I'd rather start Rashad over these guys. But Cooper is our pivot.
And then Cooper to the pivot. Kyler or Fields in 6-point. Justin Fields.
Yeah.
The rushing floor is just too much. It's the 6-point passing touchdown actually probably leans Kyler a little bit. If I like the way that I am actually perceiving that the Cardinals can win this game, which I said at the top of the hour, I do think the Cardinals can win this game. Is the 6-point passing TD might favor Kyler with the more passing touchdowns. Fields' rushing ceiling is just too high, especially with a banged up backfield. I saw him have 18 carries last game. And throw a touchdown to DJ Moore. So, I mean, yeah, it's going to be Fields in a pretty decent lean for me. Like I have Fields in my top 6 quarterbacks and Kyler at QB 11. So
I might go against you on this one, but
you're a madman, but I love it.
Yeah, I'm just not loving this matchup. Whether they're versing, someone trying to pass or someone trying to rush, the Vikings have just been basically like locked down for quite a bit. It's it's really like the turnovers that killed them last week. Otherwise, they were putting a pretty solid offense, to punt. But it's not like an easy decision here.
Definitely start McBride
for that old. Yeah, there you go.
Sorry, that was very delayed, but we finally got back to this. Yeah. I mean, I feel you for the matchup. I think we may differ on this one, but you're also in a very good position. And I will concede that I did, lean 6-point with Kyler. So if you're feeling like Themi's analysis is stronger than mine, which it often is this season, he's fucking been killing it, then I lean that way for sure. But I think you're in a good spot to have a top 12 QB week with either of those guys in your lineup. One more question from Joe. Full PPR, Bijan or Keaton Mitchell? I'm still going Bijan, man. I'll die on the sword.
Yeah, even in a great matchup where Keaton Mitchell's, even if he gets 10 touches, I'm not banking on that becoming like a touchdown every week. He's like a high upside, Hail Mary kind of play, and I love it. I want to see him succeed. But, man, Bijan with a full workload, even in a pretty tough matchup that we kind of discussed, may not be as tough as it seems anymore. Yeah, I'm not benching Bijan for him.
Yeah, completely agree. And Joe faked us out with the one more. I see you love, much love, Steve, much love. But Joe faked us out because he does have one more after the one more. You can drop as many one mores as you want, Joe. We out here to answer your questions, brother. With Burrow out, can I trust Jamar Chase? Plain and simple, yes. Can you expect a wide receiver overall finish in a top 5 weekly ceiling? No.
No. But
the same way that you can trust Garrett Wilson, you can trust Jamar Chase. Although Garrett Wilson's last game was not a good example to put that into, but
Garrett Wilson went off on Black Friday.
Yeah.
As off as you can go in a Jets offense, which
I know. But like in that same sense, like it is still going to be, they're still going to pass some. He's still going to be the number 1 target. And
I think the manufacturer touches a lot for him, like behind the line of scrimmage too.
Yeah.
Like those screens and stuff.
And he's legitimately one of the, and I know this is like a common idiom, but he's one of the only players in the NFL that this has actually been true for. Like every single touch is a chance to score for Jamar Chase. Every single touch. So yeah, you can trust him. Absolutely. Can you taper expectations and lower the ceiling? Absolutely as well. But you still have a top 15 wide receiver floor, in my opinion. Hey guys, full PPR, pick one. Kupp at Arizona or Bijan at New Orleans? Now this one's a lot more closer than I think some of the other Bijan questions, but this is starting to make me realize how low consensus really is on Bijan. I think they're wrong for that, but obviously I've been wrong in the past. So
well, it's also two first-round players up against each other, basically. Man, how'd you get both these guys on one team? That's crazy. I guess you got them like one at the end. I don't know. That doesn't matter. Okay. Damn. I might just take the safety in Bijan this week.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm kind of talking myself out of Cup at this point in terms of like what a realistic ceiling is. Like, yeah, he could obviously take advantage of this game, but do the Rams have any incentive to like pass
They
very
just don't
heavily?
need to pass. Like, you just don't need to pass against the Cardinals to
I
blow
mean,
them
like,
out.
yeah. I mean, the only thing is like the Rams' pass defense is also pretty bad, which means like Kyler Murray could easily take advantage and make this a game where they have to. Man, it's hard to bench Cup because I love him so much. I'm not benching him in any of my leagues, but that's also because I don't have any, great players to replace him with. I'll take a shot on Bijan here.
I think I'm going to lean with that as well, and that's a tough one. The ceiling probably favors Cup. If there's a game theory, Edgardo, when you're in here and you got to get like you're down a few points and your opponent has more players to play than you, like if that is attached as well, I might lean towards the ceiling of Cup. But in a vacuum, I think I want the safety of Bijan, and I know that New Orleans matchup looks historically worse than it actually has been as of late. So I'm not as shy as consensus seems to be. We appreciate you, Charles. Thanks for always hopping in here, man. You're one of my homies, one of my favorites, as are all of you guys. Same with Joe, who did mention McBride. We got to that. Drop Myers for downs. Yep, we got to that. Alejandro in here. I was waiting for you to come around, my brother. Let's have a day, boys. Let's get into the playoffs. That's all of our plans. PPR start one, Tank Dell, Ridley, or Josh Downs. An embarrassment of riches here. How can we bench? Can we bench Tank Dell? How can you bench Tank Dell, man?
It's like you're going to start Tank Dell. He's going to have a very good week, and then Josh Downs is going to put 30.6 up. But like, is a bad Josh Downs week worth the risk? But like, what's a bad Josh Downs week? Like, what are the odds that he underperforms in such a great matchup? That's the situation. Okay, I'm sure it's decent. He's still a rookie, but. All three of these guys are probably going to go off. That's the only issue.
Just phenomenal options right now. And I mean, Ridley, I think, is obviously the most volatile. So we could probably rank him towards the bottom, even with, his Zay Jones splits being so phenomenal. I think we can probably, him and Josh Downs are a little closer. Like, I can't bench Tank Dell right now. It's such an incredibly stable target ceiling that he's been just producing in. Like there's only been like 6 wide receivers in NFL history to have his splits and points per game averages through the first 11 games of a rookie season, and it's guys like Justin Jefferson, Odell Beckham, Jamar Chase, AJ Green. He's literally having a historic like dynasty wide receiver one untouchable asset, but because he was drafted in the 3rd round and from the Texans, like there's still that attached narrative. I personally can't sit Tank Dell in full PPR too. Like, bro,
he's getting very hot right now. And looking back at that Jacksonville matchup at the beginning of the season, he caught 5 of 7 targets for 145 yards and a touchdown. One was a 68-yarder, but like that doesn't matter because he had a 40-yarder last week. Like you can rely on him.
Yeah,
CJ Stroud's not afraid to like let him go downfield and just chuck it up to him. And like he'll beat people.
Yeah, and I mean it was
okay. I think it's Tank Dell.
First draft pick as the general manager of the Texans. It's just, but like I talked about it a little bit last week with something that I just do think is a really cool narrative. It's incredible that they basically handed him the keys to their next draft pick and he nailed it. They were like, "Who do you want?" And he goes, "I want that kid from fucking Houston." And you look at the Senior Bowl and you know why. Like,
but I mean, can we really trust him because he failed that stupid IQ test that no one's heard about until last year. So, I mean,
might be the legitimate like the best wide receiver scout in the NFL today. Alejandro in here with another full PPR. Sit 1. So sitting 1, James Conner, Ramondre Stevenson, Rachaad White. I'll start Rachaad. I'm starting Rachaad no matter what over these guys. Getting real hot, nice target ceiling. The rushing production has been wavering for sure, but obviously ain't nobody coming for those rushing touches either. He's still getting 16 carries a game, even though it's only yielding 48 yards. But I think Rashad is just, he really has grown into what we all thought he would be from that Arizona collegiate profile. One of the best receiving backs in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm not benching Rashad White here. I think he's probably the start. But then Ramondre Stevenson is my RB sleeper of the week. Giants.
Mm-hmm. That's why I left him for you.
Beat on any side of the ball. The team really didn't want to declare who their quarterback was coming into Sunday for the Patriots. Whether the team knew or not, whether the team knew or not, whatever. I think it's officially Mac Jones now. But like, how long of a leash will he have? I don't know. Giants cornerbacks are susceptible, so like I could see them kind of taking advantage of like that. But Cordell Flott kind of getting a little better as the season progresses. But man, you could just beat them down the middle. Like that's. I did a preview with a Patriots fan of this game, and we were just talking about how like in that Raiders game, Josh Jacobs was just pounding them. He had one of his best rushing games of the season. Yeah. I think Ezekiel Elliott could be like a sneaky kind of play this week where like they both get touches because they are kind of splitting work. But man, James Conner just not getting anything as a receiver, and I think Ramondre can kind of make up for that and have like a decent week. I'm sitting James Conner.
Same. I just wanted you to get your sleeper promo out. Last one, and then he fakes us out with the last one as well. But we'll get to his first last one. Keep the last ones coming, guys. We got 9 minutes left, and we'll go past the hour. We'll go past the hour. Last one, Josh Dobbs or Trevor Lawrence. We made this decision already earlier, didn't we?
Yep. We're going with that. Yep.
Yeah, we're going with the safety of it, and again, citing the nastiness of Houston's secondary. That game definitely has sneaky shootout potential, but I think Josh Dobbs has given you just as safe as a floor with, he's got a top 5 ceiling multiple times this season. Yeah. I mean, as crazy as we've been in this position, it's the Geno Smith of last year. And you would definitely be happy starting Geno Smith over some of Trevor Lawrence's matchups last year too. So yeah, I'm going to lean Josh Dobbs. And Kamara or Kyren Williams, Alvin Kamara.
I mean, Kyron's got one of the best matchups in the league.
Matchups ever. I'll only interrupt for like my very strong point of it's a very personal preference. I don't ever like starting guys when I have pivots like this when they didn't practice fully.
That's fair. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can see where the risk comes into play here. Because Kyron was the RB2 overall. I'm sorry, I'm looking at standard. In half PPR, he's still the RB2. In his last game, which was against Arizona, 20 rushes, 158 yards, and a touchdown. Damn. Nothing as a receiver, but he kind of gets work every once in a while. But man, Alvin Kamara, he's good. He's good for 15 points just from receptions. Maybe not in half PPR, but what do you? I think he had 12 or 14 receptions in one of his games. Yeah, I think it was his first game against Tampa. When they were,
he set the NFL record for most receptions with fewest yards. 16 targets, 14 catches, 36 yards.
But realistically, who else is running? I don't think Jamal Williams has been a factor. Kendry Miller's out. Not that he was doing anything either.
And we kind of talked about this in the our DMs a couple weeks ago. Taysom Hill really took the Jamal Williams role that we thought Jamal Williams was going to have. Yeah. They're really handing the ball off to Taysom 5, 6, 7 times a game. They don't care. And it's crazy because they started making him run left, which I didn't even think was possible in Taysom's career, but now he's running left. How are you going to stop that?
Yeah, that's insane. I mean, listen, I'm pulling up Pro Football References red zone rushing stats, which sometimes differ from other sources. Taysom Hill, 21 red zone carries. Alvin Kamara, 20. The next highest is Tony Jones with 5. I don't think a lot of people know Tony Jones is on the team. Yeah,
he's not. He's on the Broncos.
Yeah, so it's.
I love that Sean Payton was you just called up Mick Rooney and was like, "Can you just start cutting some of the guys that I liked?"
Actually, he's on the Cardinals now.
Wow, because he did play for the Broncos for a bit.
He was on their practice squad this year.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, weird. Tony Jones, the true journeyman.
I could have just lied about that. I could just lie about which team he's on. No one would know. Not a diss to him, just a diss to the fact that he hasn't been used he hasn't been the running back in that team. So it's not like people don't care in fantasy world, so whatever.
I mean, I completely, like Kyron's ceiling is incredible. The matchup is much better than Kamara's. It is one of those things. Like I don't have any other solid analytic reasoning other than I don't like starting a guy that hasn't practiced in fully yet this week when I have a pivot like an Alvin Kamara.
That's fair. And I think the Falcons they're like a pretty soft defense. I mean, more through the air so than like the run, but
I think you have two good options here though. Like let's end it on that. Because we got two more, and I hope some more come because we got a few minutes left. Oh, my boy Wyatt up in here. What's up, JWB? Wyatt. We'll hit you up in 1 second. We got one more from Will. Half PPR, need one flex spot between Khalil Herbert, Ty Chandler, Cortland Sutton. How strong is your Ty Chandler love this week? Because he's probably a start over Khalil.
Yeah. So then it's like, well, but we already talked about Sutton and how like.
No, I'm not a fan.
Yeah, we're not fans. I mean, like, I think that he has a couple big plays in him at least, which might be enough to like, especially if one's a touchdown. Like, he's just so good. But it's like first you have to get down to that range, which it could be off of like a pick or a fumble, like they have done in recent weeks. Where Russell Wilson is just so good in that area. But I'd rather bank on Ty Chandler in a matchup that I really love. Like, he should have been my RB sleeper, to be honest. But also like. He's not like that strong of a play, but I think he's stronger than these guys at least. I think he offers a degree of safety as well that like maybe Herbert might be able to offer just by volume alone, but it's a tough matchup. We saw Javonte get shut down.
Too, man.
Yeah, and this team likes to split carries around like Foreman and Rashawn Johnson. Like even though Rashawn Johnson's kind of faded away as a rookie, he's still kind of in the mix. He had I forgot if it was him or Foreman that got the touchdown last week. But yeah, there's
Evans.
Darrington Evans. No, Darrington Evans has, I think, almost as many red zone carries as Khalil Herbert this year, though, which is weird, but whatever. But yeah, I'm going with Ty Chandler. You can disagree with me. I don't mind.
No, I mean, it's a slight maybe edge to Sutton still because I think he's going to get more work in general than Chandler. But I honestly, like, as my wide receiver bust of the week, I think that there's probably a bit of an argument to have Chandler to have a higher ceiling game. And I know Will gets himself into some holes early on in the week. So, yeah, I mean, I might risk it for the biscuit and go Ty Chandler. We're hopping in, Wyatt. Much love, much respect, brother. So good to see you around. What's up, gents? Half PPR, Cup, Pittman, or Nico? This is as tough as it gets.
Yeah, I don't think we've gotten Pittman in the mix with these guys. Like we've talked about basically everyone else.
Yeah.
Man, Pittman has like that same great matchup as Josh Downs, who I absolutely love.
I love that Colts matchup this week. I really like Michael Pittman. I mean, he did have the longest stretch for, I think it was 8 reception games like in a row. I mean, yeah, I really like Michael Pittman this week. I've talked about the volatility of Cup, and I genuinely think like with a larger sample size of bad games than we have good games with Cup, I don't think that is like an outlier. I do think that regression has finally hit that guy after being the world beater that he was. Obviously, injuries don't help both to him and his quarterback and the offensive line. It is a perceivably good matchup against a weak Arizona Cardinals defense, but the strongest part about that defense is inarguably the secondary, and they're so easy to run against. You don't necessarily need to have a high volume passing attack in what would support a good Cooper Kupp game. Michael Pittman and Nico Collins is where I'm leaning the most. Nico is he's a tough bench for me. But I love Michael Pittman's matchup, so that's where I'm going to lean. I'm going to go with Pittman over Nico Collins.
That's where I'm going to. It's tough. I mean, like, I don't understand how everyone in this chat just somehow has like the greatest team we've ever seen. Like
it's playoff time and they follow us, bro.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, if you have a bad team, you're not asking us questions. Like, I mean, we've had some deep questions before that are insane. But as the season progresses, you kind of just give up. I guess is the thing. Like, also not as many big bye weeks affecting people. Like when the Eagles and the Rams were on bye, like I've seen entire teams get benched just because they had those teams. Like,
oh yeah, no, it's a very like long hindsight game theory thing, but like when I draft, I often in that sense will punt a week. Like, instead of constantly having to replace my good players on bye, it's like, fuck it. These two teams have the same buys. I'm fine. Like, week 13, I take an L. Like that.
Yeah, people always like, oh my god, all your players are on bye this week. Like
yeah,
during the draft, and it's like that might actually be better. I mean, like, do I want to have a good chance of winning each week? Sure, but man.
We appreciate you, brother. And Ben, probably with our last one, if you got more guys, we got you covered. We are getting close to the hour, though, so I'll answer this one. I'll do a few shout-outs, some love, some promo. But Benjamin's got one more for us that's just screaming to my heart. It's as if he knows. Half PPR with one of Raheed Shaheed, my boy from the Saints, my favorite team, and my favorite player on not my favorite team, Rondale Moore. Leaning Shaheed with no MT. That's where I'm leaning to. As much as I love Rondale, it's only really been one game where he was like, all right, this is happening. This is really happening. This is happening. He's had 8 targets and 5 rush attempts. This is happening. And then it was really nice to see that one deep pass attempt lead to a touchdown last week. It was also his only pass attempt. So I am leaning Shaheed, and I think with no MT is a very good reason to lean Shaheed because he's already such an incredible big play boomer bust guy. Now that you're increasing some vacated targets that will trickle down undoubtedly to him, undoubtedly a little bit to Kamara, undoubtedly to Olave. I don't really believe in vacated targets, but there is always a trickle-down effect. Olave should benefit the most from a high target guy leaving, obviously, but Shaheed's still going to see 2 or 3 more per game. That increases his floor in what is already a 30-point ceiling. We've seen it,
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Like, Michael Wilson being out, does that affect Rondale Moore? Maybe marginally, but like MT being out is more important. And
there's a lot more funnels to trickle down for the Cardinals for it to benefit Rondale, right? Like, then you can go perceivably a few shorter targets to McBride, maybe even James Conner, who hasn't had any targets because of that offense being spread out. Obviously, Hollywood Brown's still there. So that's definitely more mouths to feed when those targets leave in Arizona than there are in New Orleans, which is incredible to think about. Like, you think about that having a very low depth offense, but in reality, like, Arizona's has a deep offense and certainly guys that are consistently earning targets. With that takes us a 1 minute past. Much love, much respect. As always, thanks for tuning in. Crunch Time Live. We will be here, same bat channel, same bat Sunday. Tune into all of our content at Broto Fantasy on Twitter. I'm at PsychWardFF. He's at the Gridiron Greek. We got all the boys, big army over there, constantly producing content. Head over to patreon.com/BrotoFantasy. Like, subscribe, share, click the bell for notifications. We out here. Peace. Best of luck. Win those